Midtown Studios of Bloomberg Television in New York City, this is Charlie Rose.
He has a unique style, he makes tons of money, and he is a force in broadcasting. And now, in the movies, I am pleased to have on this broadcast Howard Stern. You have been on this tour now, promoting this movie. Critics love it. Across the board.
I'm not used to this kind of attention and praise. Making this movie for me was truly a labor of love. 4 years making this movie. And I wanted to make a movie that was truly the story of my life. I didn't want to make an over-the-top comedy. And by that I mean I had been sickened by what I've seen recently. I'm a big fan of film. I didn't like the Coneheads. I was not a fan of these Saturday Night Live guys who make these sketch
Michael Myers and those people.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the thing that appealed to me. I wanted to make a comedy that people had some good belly laughs, but also got a real story, something that was fun, but yet there was some basis in reality. And I always thought that my story was kind of like a Rocky story. Here was the loser, the geek, the nerd. His father told him he was a moron. And suddenly he has this dream to be on radio since he's 5. Doesn't really talk. There's no talent there. Nobody sees anything in him. His voice is horrible. I get on the air. I'm awful. I can't catch my breath on the air. I don't know how it was for you the first time you got on the air, but I was nervous.
Everything was tight.
Yeah, tight. And my throat was up here. You know, I was up here. And I couldn't talk. And lo and behold, through unusual circumstances, I get to be the #1 radio guy in America. And the road was a rocky road. Every time I had a good idea, every time I thought I was opening up the airwaves and doing something outrageous that was entertaining for these audiences who were trapped in their cars every morning from 6 to 10 in the morning, I thought I was entertaining people, and yet management was very afraid of what I was doing. They were afraid because nobody had ever done it before.
All right. I want to talk about the show, what happens on the radio in a little bit later.
Why, was I boring you with that story?
No, but I just want to focus on the movie for a second.
Okay.
Was it your idea, or Reitman's idea, to make the kind of movie that we saw?
It was both of our
The
ideas.
Rocky story, the notion of this guy who starts out unlikely to succeed and succeeds big time.
Well, I wrote the book, Private Parts.
Right.
And when Hollywood came to me...
Really? I thought maybe.
When I wrote the book, though, I never envisioned there being a movie, was what my point is.
Not once.
Never. I would never think that would be made into a movie. I couldn't see how. When I wrote it, I took each chapter and I tried to write it like a magazine piece almost, a vignette of my life. So for 2 years, when this was first bought by Hollywood, I was smart. I said, you better give me script approval. That's the only way I'll do it, because I don't see how you're going to make this into a movie. And sure enough, for 2 years, they couldn't. Ivan wasn't involved yet in the beginning. And the guys who bought the book, real honest guys, trying hard to make a script. Every 2 weeks, they came in with a script. I cost them millions of dollars, and I rejected every script.
These are the guys from New Line?
These are the guys from Reicher. It's called Reicher.
Reicher. Right, okay.
They were trying. It's a difficult book to make into a movie. I would call Ivan Reitman, who is the producer of, he was a director of Ghostbusters, Twins. I mean, I was lucky to be involved with this guy. He was a fan of mine. He says, you know, your book, it's very easy to make this book into a movie. He said, what it's got to be, it's a linear story. It's this Rocky story. It's also the story of you and your wife. He says, as a fan of your radio show, I don't want to see the Howard of today. We can get that for free. I want to see the guy at 20 years old. I want to see the guy who couldn't do radio good. You know, he was the bad radio guy. That's who I want to see, the nervous geek. I want to see the guy who was bad with women. I want to meet the woman who would be married to Howard Stern. After all, that's a good question. Who would marry Howard Stern? Who would spend 23 years of their lives with me?
Well, answer that question for me, not what comes out of the movie, but who is Allison, and why do you think she has made these decisions? And what was it about you that made Allison say, this is my guy?
First of all, I could not believe when I met Allison, as I do in the movie, I think we're accurate. Right. I could not believe when I met Allison that she would even be interested in me. I had a very bad self-image.
And not a great track record.
No, I'm not a handsome man, I know that, and I was certainly shy and awkward with women. And the idea that this normal, beautiful woman, when I say normal, up until that point, whenever I had dated some real freaky women, let's put it, like the kind you date. So anyway, I've dated all these freaky women and stuff, and suddenly this woman is not only paying attention to me, but wants to spend the rest of her life with me.
Why?
She's professing her love. I think it was because I could make her laugh. And I tried to show that in the movie, because as my radio fame happened, it meant me revealing more and more of what went on in our sex life, revealing the details of her miscarriage. Right. I did all of these things, and they weren't fair to her. I know they weren't fair to her. I often fantasize. I go, if my wife had a radio show and revealed everything about our sex lives on the air, would I like that? No, I wouldn't. So I know it was hard on her. And I think people have said for years, why would a woman put up with this guy? But what we try to show in the movie is that we have this genuine affection for one another, and we have a true sense of humor that appeals to one another. It's a little dark, and it's a little freaky, but we love each other.
If she was not married to Howard Stern, Allison would be listening to the radio show.
No. No, I don't think so.
Not for a second.
No, I don't think Allison
It's
would.
not.
I don't think Allison would be a fan of the radio show. No.
Why not?
Because she's not. I just don't think it would be her thing. I can't. I know Allison's sensibilities. I don't think she'd be. First of all, she's more of like sort of a music person in the morning, that kind of thing. I don't think she would. I don't think my parents would listen to my radio show if I wasn't. I mean, they listen to it obsessively. But I know my mother would hate my guts if
Because they like it, or because they want to see what you're going to say about them?
I think they like it. I think at this point they genuinely like it, but the way they got turned on to it is because they know me, you know, but I don't think they would be attracted to it. And I think that's true of the film. That's my marketing problem. If I do have a marketing problem, the movie's been successful, but I want more than just my fans to see this movie. Yeah. And I think this is a mass appeal movie. I think it's funny, I think it's romantic, and I think it's also something that has inspired people to follow their dreams. This is very funny. I work out at a gym. You can't tell, but I do. And this woman came up to me. She said, I just quit my job here. She worked behind the desk. She said, because I'm a singer, and I watched your movie, and I'm inspired now to go out and try it. I got to go out and follow my dream.
If you can read that out of the movie, then you've done wonders for a lot of people.
Either that or they'll be unemployed. Yeah.
Or who are living lives of quiet desperation. Right. But back to this relationship with Allison. It goes too far for her? Not the movie,
there are times,
the radio show.
There are times that the radio show goes too far. We never resolve this in the movie.
The miscarriage business.
We don't resolve the fact that she thinks I go too far and I reveal too much of our personal lives. It still bothers her to this day. So we couldn't resolve it in the movie, which I like. I didn't want to sugarcoat anything. But at the same point, I mean, as recently as this week, I've gone home and my wife said, why? Why do you have to tell everything about our sex life? Is nothing private? And I have this compulsion to talk about everything that goes on in my life, as you know.
Why?
Because back in Detroit, when my station went country, and I realized that I was going to end up being a disc jockey who basically traveled from market to market, that if I went on the air and split open my brain and talked about everything, that it would be a tremendously compelling radio show.
Now, see, that's fascinating to me. It would be different, but why did you think splitting open your brain would be a great radio show?
I think that anyone who would do that, you have an agenda going on in your head right now. I don't know what that agenda is. It could be, I can't believe that bastard Stern is making more money than me. You know, I'm so much more talented than Stern, and he is making more money than me. I should split open my brain. That could be going on in your head right now.
I think, actually, what I think is the authenticity is the best possible thing you can do on television, on radio, in the movies.
It's not so much that I open my brain up. It's the idea that somebody is opening their brain up for you to experience on the air. And what that means is not just like saying, hey, I think Woody Allen is a terrible person. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about admitting everything that scares you. I'm talking about admitting that you have a small penis for real. I mean, that's an embarrassing thing to admit.
Yeah, but how do I know that's not just radio, and how do I know that's not just...
I know it's not just radio. I am telling the truth. Believe me, Charlie, it's not a pretty sight. Believe me. You know what it's like to pull down your pants and have a woman laugh at you?
No.
Well, of course you don't. Hung like a moose.
Do you?
Yes, I do.
Do you?
Yes. Yes. I had a woman break up with me. I dated a little bit before my
this is a long time ago.
No, I had a woman break up with me because I wasn't big enough for her.
Oh, man.
I'm telling you the truth.
Oh, come on.
Look at you.
Roll tape. Here it is from Private Parts, the movie. It has grossed, what, so far? 30,
almost $30 million.
Almost $30 million. It's in its third weekend coming up. Here it is.
I feel like such a loser.
It's not your fault. It was a lame station.
Yeah, it was my fault. You can't blame a radio station. It's my screw-up.
In what way?
In the way that I got to figure out what I'm going to be. I mean, I don't want to be one of these disc jockeys that runs around the country, you know, looking for work all the time. I don't want to end up like that. It's so sad. It's so apparent to me now what I should be doing. I should be talking about my personal life. I've got to get intimate. And every time I feel like I shouldn't say something, maybe I should just say it. Just blurt it out, you know? I just got to let things fly. I got to go all the way.
You didn't go all the way before?
No, I mean... No, a lot of times I'm just holding back.
And I guess you should go all the way.
After that, going all the way, finding a place to do it, everything is just...
Well, that was Washington for me. Washington was my testing ground. I fully realized what it was I had to do on the radio in order to become a hit. And it meant really truly being myself. It meant actually revealing every thought to the audience. And that took some doing. And as you can see in that scene, my wife went along with me on that. She said, yeah, go do it. But I don't think she fully realized what it all meant.
All right. When you say revealing every thought,
yes,
it's what's in your head, what you're thinking about. It's
yes.
not, there are things that you don't talk about. You don't talk about how much money you make.
Right.
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 Why not?
Well, because I think that there's
You're going to reveal all.
Well, yeah. First of all, when you say reveal all, there are thoughts I don't reveal because, A, they're boring.
Right.
I mean, don't forget, I'm still entertaining an audience.
Right.
Every thought is, there's a lot of mundane thoughts going. In fact, there's a lot of mundane thoughts
but
going on.
it's live, and I mean, what seems to be happening there is that there's no barrier between the moment the thought comes up
That's right.
and the moment your mouth moves.
Right. And that's the premise that makes it so interesting. I've always found that kind of honesty interesting. In terms of revealing how much money one makes, it's to me it was very bizarre because I've always felt that, maybe this comes from my father. My father would never tell me how much money he made.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want my kids to know how much money I had. I think that that could be tremendously spoiling for them. I also think it's hard to live on Long Island and have a family and announce to the world how much money you make. And then when you try to have a plumber or an electrician come to the door, it's kind of weird. And there's tremendous class jealousy in this country.
Okay, but tell me about this.
Yeah.
If, in fact, they knew how many millions you make, and if you read enough papers, you find out how much the book made, how much the movie is likely to make, and how much the radio plays, and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Do you worry about somehow it changing the image of you as this guy railing against the system, as this guy who's everyman, as this guy who's constantly in a self-deprecatory thing with one hand while he's promoting with the other hand?
I have never, honestly, I have never worried about image. It's a funny thing. With me, you can kind of never win. People say, well, do you have an image? As soon as you start worrying about image, then you're screwed. Because there have been times that I've been on the radio and I said, maybe I shouldn't talk about this. Maybe I shouldn't do this because it'll screw up my image. And then I go, do it.
Yeah.
Do it, because that's why people like what you do.
Exactly.
And I've always kind of felt when it comes to image, it's better not to have an image. I mean, yeah, you know, I've got long hair and this, that, but I've always grown my hair long because I like the way I look. It hides my skinny neck and maybe somehow makes my nose look smaller. I don't know. But, I mean, so there is that sort of conscious image. But I don't worry about the things I say. It's a funny thing. I remember a couple of years ago, I did a pay-per-view special, and the critics were all over me. Oh, it was the most disgusting thing you ever did. It made $40 million in one night. Most disgusting thing you ever did, this and that, and the other thing. And they said, Stern's a creep. You should be drummed out of show business. And then I do a radio show, and whatever it is I said over the course of the year, and the FCC fining me $1.7 million, he should be out of show business. So then I make a movie, and the movie gets critical praise to the point where, you know, I can't even find bad reviews on this movie. And the thing is that it makes a lot of money, and now some people are coming out and saying, oh, this is horrible. This is terrible. Howard Stern made a good movie. We don't believe any of it. It's terrible. He should have made a raunchy movie. He should have done Butt Bongo Fiesta. In other words, I can't really win. So I think that people have always said, my time is over. Yeah. That's it. I'm over. The movie's going to be a bomb. They expected it to be a Pauly Shore movie. They expected it to be a Coneheads movie. It was a movie of substance. It was a movie that was funny, and they don't know what to do with me. I don't know why. I don't know why all the hostility. But
what is it you think you do?
Well, I think I'm a funny guy. I think that
I've always been.
Yeah, I think I'm good at telling a story. I'm not a comedian. I'm not a stand-up comic. I always saw myself as a broadcaster, primarily a radio broadcaster. I'm someone who takes the medium of radio and mixes it up. It's a very conservative medium, particularly when I got into it. And I was able to do things that people hadn't done before. I was able to stop playing the records, break every rule, not be a good announcer, talk about everything my management had just done to me, and really say whatever was on my mind. And that was refreshing. I remember when I got into radio, the typical radio host was a guy who would host a forum every day. He'd take phone calls and said, okay, abortion. Are you pro or con? I am not going to give my opinion because I don't want to get in the way of the discussion. How boring and dull. So I think I'm kind of a funny guy. Not always funny. Sometimes I'm just doing my thing. I'm being honest or whatever it is.
And are willing to go wherever your curiosity takes you.
Right.
And mostly your curiosity is that of a juvenile, or
Yes.
is it is?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's very juvenile. I think there are at times it's juvenile. I think, you know, a guy passing wind into a microphone is funny to me. I find burping funny still. I know I have a juvenile mentality, but there are times that we can be somewhat satiric.
Sure.
You know, we can,
all of us.
Yeah, we can.
There's a kid in all of us.
Yeah, I mean,
And yours has just stayed longer.
Yeah, right. But you know what? I think that the reason people relate to what I do is that deep down inside, we're, especially guys, there is this sort of 9-year-old sensibility.
Do we view this as Howard Stern performance, the radio show, or we view this as Howard Stern who he is? You know, is that old question?
No, I think it's Howard Stern who he is. I can't say that. How can that be a performance 4 hours a day if you're unlocking all your internal thoughts? It's a different kind of Howard Stern. When I have enough sense, common sense, to know that when I'm out with my kids and I'm out with my family, that I behave one way. When I'm on the radio, I can probably be the most honest and unlock everything. I've always hated real life. Real life to me represents locking up your opinions, locking up your thoughts, and behaving a certain way.
So if you and I were having
I'm
dinner,
even behaving a certain way now. I'm behaving a certain way now because I want to appeal to your audience.
Yeah, that's what I know. It's that's the smart thing about you. I mean, you have the movie, for example, in selling this movie, in making this movie, you want to do what? I mean, who are you, what's the sell? To show a part of Howard Stern that they may not know?
The sell was I wanted to make a funny movie. I wanted the people to see that I was a good actor, that I could make a funny movie, and also have a film career, that I could make other movies. And if the movie made a lot of money, I knew that would afford me, again, script approval and would allow me to do a second film that I was confident in, that I thought was strong. I would like to make other films.
So what's next for you in terms of the movie career? Do you do the sequel to Private Parts, which picks up where you are now?
No. I think that maybe that would be down the road. But if I made a second film, I'd like to play a character. And it's funny, I used to ask Betty Thomas, who was the director, and she did a wonderful job with me. I'd say to her every day when we started shooting, do you think I'm an actor? Do you think I'm good enough to be, you know, Bob the Pirate, you know, in some other film? And she said, I don't know. I gotta, you know, we got to see. Because which is funny, I got to make a movie without anyone knowing if I can act or not. So every day I would ask her this question. She said, I don't know. The last day we were shooting, she came up to me and said, I'm making my next film with Eddie Murphy. I'd like you to be in it. Now that to me was vindication. She was saying, hey, you can act. Yeah. And then about 3 weeks later, Ivan Reitman sat me down in his plush offices and said, here's a script I'd like you to do next. And it was a romantic comedy that he'd like me to star in.
Dream big for me here.
Okay.
What would you like?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I've certainly gone beyond my wildest dreams. Getting to make the movie out of my book would have seemed impossible to me back in the days of Washington. You know, I could never have imagined that.
You were just having fun day by day.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I've ever had fun doing this. I've always sort of I've had a love-hate relationship.
Why not?
Well, because I hate getting up at 4 in the morning. Yeah. I love being on the radio. Once I'm there and doing it, but the preparation for it kills me. I always feel like I'm preparing. Even when I'm watching TV, I'm going, you know, hey, what can I see that I can make fun of? What can I see that I can talk about? And it always feels like it's Sunday night before I'm going to school the next day. Yeah. It always feels like that. I'm constantly preparing and constantly trying to find something to sort of have fun with or come up with the next new thing. So that to me is a lot of pressure. I'd like to be free of that. But I don't think I could ever walk away from radio. I just signed a 5-year deal. I mean...
but you can't walk away because you signed a 5-year deal, or you can't walk away because radio feeds a certain part of you, having that forum every day, which also works well to promote. Well, no, forget about the promote. I'm afraid to walk away from it because I think it fills some sort of need there. I mean, I've wanted to do this since I was 5 years old. What's the need?
Attention, entertain.
Make people laugh.
Yeah, make people laugh. I can't imagine. I'm afraid to find out what it would be like not to have that show there every day.
Have you ever thought about it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I thought about it long and hard. I thought about it long and hard before I signed this new contract. I said, you know, I could walk away from it now. It's enough. Maybe I did it enough. And then I said, well, there's still things I want to accomplish. I want to be on in every city in the country. It disturbs me that I'm only on in 35 markets. Yeah. It's disturbed me that the show had been a local show for so many years. I always felt it should be a national morning program.
You believe if you did a late-night show, you could beat Leno and Letterman?
Oh, I know I could. I'm that confident about it, sure.
Why?
Because I think that I could be a refreshing voice there. Even my E-television show, the television show, which is essentially the radio show, film, is their highest-rated show. I just feel that I have a confidence. It's the same way I felt I could go into radio as a career, even before I had done it. Same way I felt that I could act in film, even though I hadn't done it. I feel confident that if I went on in late-night television, I would be a refreshing, honest voice that people would have to tune into. I've always felt that way, and I almost a couple of years ago signed a deal with Fox to go at 11:30 at night, and I backed off it because I said, well, how am I going to do a radio show? How am I going to do a late-night talk show at the same time and just even have a life? Because, you know, you barely have a life now. How are you going to have a life? That would mean you'd never see your family, you'd be burnt out and fried, and it would be awful.
Good father?
I think I'm an okay father. I think I'm good. I think that I spend too much time working and too much time obsessed with career, like I was doing this film all summer. But I think that I think I'm good with my kids. I think my wife's terrific with the kids.
Well, we've already established how lucky you are to have
I am
Allison.
lucky, yes.
All right, let me go back to the movies. What makes acting difficult? What was hard for you in terms of coming across as if you belonged in the movie?
Well, I was full of bravado on the air. Before I started filming, I was like, oh, acting's easy, I can do this. Yeah. But inside, I was nervous because it's you know, people say, well, you're going to play yourself. It doesn't make a difference what you're playing. I think most actors are playing themselves. They're just doing it as, they call me whoever. Don't call me Howard, call me Steve. I had to go back and play myself at 20 and, you know, this insecure, nervous guy and everything. And when I first got to the set, they were smart. The first thing they had me do was be a radio guy. We did one of the radio scenes. And suddenly, I turned to Betty that first day, and I'm like, Betty, listen to me. I work spontaneously. That's how I work. Now, I'm going to go in there. I'm going to do this scene once. You understand what I'm going to do? I'm going to do it once. And what do you mean you have one camera? Get 5 cameras. Why do you have one camera? Have 5 cameras because I can't repeat it. Like this I was. And she just shook me. I mean, she sat me down in a chair and said, look, Junior, this is what we got to do. We're making a movie. It's a whole different pace. You're going to have to do things multiple times. Yeah. You're going to have to give me what's on the script. I said, I can't memorize a script. I don't work that way. It'll be awful. I'll make up something different each time. No. Do what's on the script, then give me something different. Right. I would love that.
Lock it in first.
Yeah. And the first 3 days, I was awful. I was horrible at it. I was just feeling very confined. It was not what I was used to. I didn't think it was playing to my strengths, and I really wanted to get out of the movie. I mean, in the worst way. I said, I've made a terrible mistake here. And
talk to anybody about this?
Oh, yeah. Talked to my agent about it. Talked to my wife about it. I said, I've made a terrible mistake.
What did Allison say?
I talked to Ivan Reitman about it.
And
Ivan sat me down and said, you're carrying a $25 million picture here.
Get your butt back in there and shape
do
up.
It. Yeah, shape
exactly.
up. Allison said, I know you. You're a quick study. You're gonna figure it out. And my agent said the same exact thing, Don Buchwald. And he was very supportive, and so was Allison. So after about 3 or 4 days, I started to think about what I was doing in this film. And I said, what is it I'm really trying to do? Let's get into this. I know I can do this. And I started to think about it. And I said, let's get into the rhythm of this. Slow it down. Do it a couple of times. Rehearse with the other actors. Really get into it. And it's this idea of make-believe that is so strange to us, because here we are adults. I mean, I'm 43 years old, and I'm in there making believe that I'm, you know, like I'm a kid at 20 and stuff. It's weird. It's just strange. It's nothing that I was used to doing. And I got into it, and I really embraced it. And then I found after about 2 weeks, I called for my close-up last so I could have more rehearsal time. And I really enjoyed it. And I loved doing what was on the page. And then I loved giving Betty, I loved going all over the place. There were scenes where, you know, I would just be in the bathroom and clipping my nasal hair all of a sudden, and Betty go, great, great, great stuff. And we'd start to collaborate. And the collaboration was weird for me in the beginning. I'm not used to that. I'm used to being the director. I'm the guy who presses the button in the morning for all the microphones, and I work that show.
And you react to everything.
I react to everything. And now all of a sudden, it was Betty who was the mirror. She was the one saying to me, hey, that was good, that was bad. You know, all of a sudden you had to come to trust her. It was a whole different process.
So you learned what about yourself doing this, that this is one more mountain that you can climb?
I learned that I like doing this better than anything.
Better than the radio?
Better than the radio. I enjoyed...
Why? I mean, the radio is live, except for getting up in the morning. What is it about the movie business?
It was the most exciting. Now, I had the best of all worlds. I had a collaboration with Ivan Reitman and Betty Thomas, and I had some actors in here who were great New York actors.
And the interesting thing about it, these are all mainstream people.
Yes. Yeah, they were great actors. I mean, it was an interesting project. Yeah. Non-actors and actors working together. Robin and Fred and Jackie, non-actors, and Gary, and then the rest of these people. The woman who played my wife, Mary McCormick, and Paul Giamatti, who played Pig Vomit. Really good actors. And I loved the collaboration of it. I liked the idea of being physical. On radio, you're never physical. I loved the idea of actually showing something to the audience visually. One of the moments I like best in the film, I'm sure it washes over everyone, I don't know if they notice it. I'm on the air, I'm talking about my wife's miscarriage in Washington, D.C. And there's a moment where I'm really going on and on about this miscarriage, and Robin's telling me I'm a nut, and it looks like I'm just having fun. I turn off the microphone, and suddenly you can sit there and just drift off, and you can see that I'm evaluating what I've just done. Now, that's a moment I could never share with an audience on radio. It's something visual, it's nice, and it gets an audience thinking, like, wow, this guy, maybe he has a conscience. Or maybe he doesn't. Who knows what he's thinking about, but he's lost in thought.
Do you know anybody that's had a career you'd like to have? I mean...
I can't imagine, because I've had a career like nobody's had. And I think that I could have had a career like a straight broadcaster. I think I could have been a good talk show host. Like a regular talk show. I think I'm a pretty good interviewer, And I think I could have done that. But I didn't want that. I really enjoy my career. I like the idea that I'm this controversial guy. I'm this guy that nobody can figure out. I'm glad I can't even figure me out.
But what is it you can't figure out? I mean, you seem pretty straightforward to me.
Right.
I don't know what the mystery is about you. It seems to me you're the following things. A guy who really does say what's on his mind.
Right.
B, a guy who's very savvy about who he is and how each thing fits into a pattern. A guy who works his head off in order to be good on the radio because he wants to be successful and he wants to continue doing. All of that. A guy who happens to come from a certain value system so that he met this woman, he knows how lucky he is to have her, and he doesn't want to risk losing her. And he doesn't want to risk losing her love, because if he did that, he knows he's dead, and that whatever else is on the other side ain't worth it. Right?
Yeah, that's essentially it.
What am I missing?
People, first of all, have, listen, you've read the articles on me.
Yeah.
People are confused by me.
Right.
Some people think I'm insane. Yeah, some people think I'm insane. Some people, and you know this, I mean, there are people who think that I run through the streets nude all day and butt-bongoing women.
And I don't understand that aspect of it, but that's just the difference between you and I in terms of why you do that and what's great about that.
Right.
But that's okay.
And I like this sort of, mystery about me. I'm not a guy who goes to Hollywood premieres. I certainly don't show up at any of these openings and things that celebrities do. I sit at home in a basement.
Go to bed at 8 o'clock.
Go to bed at 8 o'clock. It's almost like a monk's life.
To what end?
I don't know. I can't figure out what I'm up to. And my father had this discussion with me the other night. He said, well, what are you doing now? Because there was some discussion about me going to a big television show. There's been a discussion about me doing another movie. And there's all this. I was discussing all these various options with him. And he says, why? What? You've done it all. He says, you've proven yourself. Why don't you take some time and relax? I said, I don't know. I think I'm still trying to prove myself to my father, you know, who thought I was a moron my entire life.
Has he ever said to you, I had it all wrong?
Yeah. In fact, I wrote about this in my book. There was a time that my father said to me, he goes, Howard, you're a genius.
I know, that's right. He did
and it was a wonderful moment. And then, of course, I ruined it by saying, well, what do you mean by genius?
When they talk about you being misunderstood, what do you think is misunderstood about you? That you are that on the part of you that we see in the movie, the guy who's been monogamous with his wife, the guy who's a good father to his 3 kids. That's one part of you, the guy who wants simply an opportunity to do what he versus the guy who does all that stuff you do that some people find repulsive, that some people find disrespectful of women, that some people find exploitive.
Misunderstood to me means this. It's the first scene in the movie. MTV asked me to come out and do something wild. And I appear as the superhero Fart Man, and I blow out some wind, and I blow up a podium. And people said, oh, you did it to be outrageous. You did it to piss off society. You did it to, put up your middle finger to everybody.
You did it because you're running against the establishment all the time.
I didn't do it for any of those reasons. I did it because I wanted people to have a good laugh. I thought it was funny, and that is why I'm misunderstood. So I come out, I do Fart Man, I see an audience filled with laughter. The next day in the newspaper, it's the front page of every newspaper in the country. And when I walk backstage amongst, other show business people, they're giving me a look like I'm a dirty, filthy demon.
That's
like
a true
somehow
story. That's a true
story.
The
absolutely
scene
true.
there is true.
That's absolutely true. And that's why
almost detestable.
Yeah. And I go, you know what?
I
said, am I any different than a guy who goes up and plays music for somebody? I made people laugh. I made them feel good. What the hell is their problem? And it reminded me of high school, where you had the cool kids and the not so cool
but
kids.
it is the difference, I think, in terms of people might make this argument. It's the difference between someone like, take great comedians.
Right.
For me, Richard Pryor is as good as they got.
I agree.
The best.
Right.
Did not use profanity, for example, in the same way that some who followed him.
Right.
There was wit versus sort of saying things in profanity or saying certain kinds of words that will generate a laugh. That laugh is not worth having compared to what a Richard Pryor does.
See, I never evaluated laughs like that.
Yeah.
To me, if you're laughing,
it's enough.
It's enough. Three Stooges.
Whatever.
I think they're as brilliant as Richard Pryor because they make me laugh just as hard. I thought the TV show The Munsters was as funny as anything I've ever seen. I thought it was a brilliant comedy. I think that when I go to a theater and I see audiences laughing, erupting in laughter, I don't know when you saw the movie, but
I saw it Saturday night a week ago.
And if you saw it with a bunch of people, they sit there and they laugh hard.
They do.
And how I get those laughs, I don't care, as long as they're laughing and having a great time. And to say that Richard Pryor gets a sort of wittier kind of laugh or this or that, who cares? I want to laugh, and I want to have big laughs and good laughs. And I don't care how you get there. And everyone sort of has their own sense of humor and their own sensibility about how to make people laugh. I just admire anybody who can make anyone laugh.
Acceptance doesn't mean anything to you.
No. I thought it didn't. And it really doesn't, because when critics knock me, critics knock my radio show all the time. Right. There's article after article about what a horrible human being I am. In fact, my books got good reviews, and my movie got great reviews, and the radio show is the thing I get the worst reviewed for, so I figure I'm the worst at radio. I'm better at this other stuff. I should probably leave radio. But what really sums it up for me about being misunderstood, getting back to your original question, is that scene when I'm 12 years old. I used to perform at these senior citizen homes. I used to do puppet shows. Right. And when I have these puppets have sex in the movie, the reason I did that was not to shock these audiences of old people. I did it because I saw they were falling asleep. I wanted to give them a good time. I wanted to make them laugh. So if I've ever tried anything in my career, I've done it for a laugh. That's all.
The other side of that is the cruelty. Some people see cruelty. Yeah. If you say, I wish they were dead, speaking of an FCC commissioner,
that's right.
That seems to go over the line. I mean, you shouldn't be wishing somebody. If, in fact, if we accept the notion that you mean it, right? It's not just funny, but you mean it.
Well, I've always said the show is opening up your brain and saying whatever dirty little thought you have in there, even the thoughts that aren't so respectable. And I know that all of us have said, "Oh, I wish he dropped dead. I wish he dropped dead. I really do. I hate this person." It's a matter of expression. But at the same point, having said it, I have always thought that speech is a wonderful thing.
I do too.
It's great. It's great to be free with speech. You cannot say anything at this table that would offend me. Your actions might offend me, but not your speech. And that's why I can do the type of show that I do. I enjoy characters. I love interviewing Ku Klux Klan guys. I've said this before. I sometimes think it's their way of, it's like being in a rock group. It's their way of getting girls down south. They're in the Ku Klux Klan. They're the Grand Kleagle or whatever they are. I don't mind interviewing them and hearing their stupid racist thoughts. If they killed somebody, then I have a problem with it. There's a big difference. So thought and speech and all that kind of stuff doesn't bother me at all.
What did you think of the Larry Flynt movie?
I was not a fan of it. I didn't like it. I thought it was rather dull. I got through about a half hour of it, and I lost interest. And some people have said, well, why? Because aren't you like a First Amendment guy? No. If I had made a movie...
But I thought what you just said had sounded like a First Amendment guy.
Well,
because you believe in free speech.
No. I mean, I'm not saying the movie shouldn't have been made. That's fine. I just was bored by it. I thought it was a boring, dull movie.
What have you seen you like?
I liked Sling Blade a lot.
I did too.
I enjoyed Welcome to the Dollhouse. Love that movie. Have you seen that?
Yes.
That was good. And I liked a lot of independent film, and I'll tell you why. I am so sick and tired of the same faces. There's some wonderful actors in Hollywood. Robin Williams is a wonderful actor, but I'm really tired of seeing him in everything. Whoopi Goldberg's a wonderful actress, but I have no interest in seeing any more Whoopi Goldberg films. I've had it. The reason we like independent film is there's kooky sort of ideas coming out of these independent filmmakers. Hollywood studios won't touch it. It's new, it's refreshing, it's new faces, it's new ideas. And I really feel, even though I got to make my film with Paramount Pictures, I really felt that my film was really different. It was odd to see this face up on the big screen.
Yeah, and how is that, to see that face on an 8-foot screen?
It's weird. I mean, I don't think I'm particularly good looking, but at the same point, I was very comfortable. I liked my performance in the film. And I was nervous that when I watched it for the first time, there's usually a cringe factor. Whenever I go to see movies, like I saw a movie recently with Sylvester Stallone, and it wasn't a particularly good movie. And for 20 minutes, I'm going, that's Sylvester Stallone. I can't buy this guy in this movie. Can't buy it. I was afraid that if my acting was off, that you would sit there for 20 minutes trying to buy that I was playing Howard Stern. You're like, oh my God, the guy's stiff, he's wooden, he's this, he's that, and the other thing. I was surprisingly comfortable after I saw myself on the big screen. I didn't feel like I did a bad performance, so I was very pleased with it. Maybe that sounds pompous to say it, but I was very pleased.
No acting coaching, no coaching.
Right.
Didn't work with a coach at all.
Right.
But you got a videotape of Michael Caine teaching acting.
Yeah, it was kind of a goof. I said to somebody, well, gee, I said to Betty, should I take acting lessons?
Yeah. And she said?
She goes, I don't know. I go, and my agent Don said to me, don't. It'll ruin you. Just go up. For some reason, you always sort of find your way through things. Yeah. Just, don't get caught up in somebody else's vision. So I said, well, Betty said, well, there is a book by Michael Caine and a tape, an accompanying tape on acting. Right. And I mean, it was laughable. I mean,
the whole thing about not blinking.
Yeah, it was wild. What you got to do? It's a whole tape.
That's good.
Yeah, what you got to do? Everything. What you got to do?
Yes.
It's like a song.
Right. Right.
And it's really kind of funny to watch him. And he just says, what you got to do is when you look at the camera. I don't know, where's your camera here?
There are lots of them here. There's one here, right here.
When you look at the camera, you go like this. Now you see what I'm doing? Now don't do this. Do this. I'm going, I don't know what the hell he's talking about. Do what? I don't even know what. It's very subtle. Take a look again. Not this, like this. I go, man, I'm in trouble. I don't know what
I don't know any of this.
I don't get it.
I don't even know
throwing
what
the
he's
tape in
teaching
the
me.
garbage. And then I did a bit on Letterman the other night about it. He goes, what you got to do is when you're looking at the camera for your close-up, don't blink. Because if you blink, you look weak. And you don't want to look weak. You look like some sort of girl. So I was just like, the whole movie, I'm like, it's pretty wild.
All right, roll tape. This is a montage of what comes out of Private Parts. It is what we call a trailer.
This is the trailer.
This will give you a sense, if you haven't seen this movie, why Howard wants you to go immediately. Here it is.
This spring, you are invited to experience an extraordinary motion picture about love, bravery, honor, and the triumph of the human spirit.
How else do you stink? He was offensive?
That is the first naked lady in the history of radio.
I really think you need counseling.
Try to be, I don't know, warmer.
Here we go.
What the hell, you're an idiot.
You're pathetic.
I'm not pathetic.
He was disgusting.
I refuse to work with this man 1 minute longer.
Give me a kiss.
You want me to go on?
Paramount Pictures and Reicher Entertainment present The Story of a Dreamer.
You're a moron. Shut up and sit still.
He became the king of all media.
We are gathered here today in praise of me.
And the price America's been paying ever since.
What you're about to hear is going to shock you because it's vulgar and obscene.
Can I take your top off?
No.
Oh, yes.
Howard Stern is not what you'd call talented.
Behold.
Your husband's quite a character.
Just an act. I'm going to have sex with you right now over the radio.
You gotta be kidding, right?
I thought you were going to control this guy.
You're not getting the phone from me, Kenny. I want to beat these guys. The only way to do that is to stay on the air.
You're fired. You're fired. You're fired.
You're fired.
Howard Stern, Private Parts.
You are the Antichrist!
And this is the hell that's my life.
Here is why we showed the trailer. The clips that I saw were not all the clips that I wanted from the movie.
Right.
I mean, we looked down a list of clips that we have. One we showed all the way when you're talking to Allison.
Right.
The other was when the announcer, the program director at WNBC is trying to get you to say WNBC. And the other is when Robin is leave. We saw a little bit of that. They didn't seem to me to sum up the movie the way I was looking for something to sum up the movie.
Yeah, there is no, that's the problem with a movie like this. Because the movie has substance,
Right.
there isn't one little cute scene that can say,
That
hey,
says,
this is the
it.
story of
Yeah.
Private Parts.
Right.
The reason the movie was well reviewed is because it isn't one or two jokes in the movie. It's a running story, and it's impossible to show that story in any one clip. And if anything that I find difficult in marketing this movie is somehow telling people that this is a real movie. A movie with a beginning, middle, and end that has real hard laughs. You know, Owen Gleedman in Entertainment Weekly, and that right there, he compared the movie to MASH. He said the classic battle between Frank Burns and who was it, Elliot Gould.
Right.
It's the same between me and Pig Vomit. We've had comparisons to Woody Allen's films. We've had, because people are seeing substance there. In Annie Hall, yeah,
right.
and I take that. I love that people are comparing it to those kind of films because to me, those are great comedies. Those are classic comedies. One reviewer compared it to Caddyshack. That's fine. I'll take that. That's wonderful. And these kind of reviews, Janet Maslin in the New York Times, they're responding to the story. They like it. It's funny. And there is no way of showing you one scene.
So what's the marketing problem other than the one scene? In other words...
Well, the marketing problem for me was this. Paramount sat me down and said, here's your problem. You've got a fan base that's tremendous. Right. You have people who
What do you
can't...
18 million people here.
There are people
radio.
who can't wait to go see this movie. Your movie, in your markets that you're on the radio, you test higher than Star Wars. People are rabid to go see this thing. But then there are people across the country, about 44% of them, who will never go see a Howard Stern film. This is when we started the marketing of the film. I said, what do you mean they'll never go see it? They said they can't stand you. The idea of you, they don't even hear you on the radio. They just don't know who you are. They think you just say penis on the radio, and there's no way you could make an appealing film for them. And that saddened me because when we tested the film, you take it, you actually show it to audiences. We showed it to audiences of people who define themselves as non-fans. And we had the highest testing picture in Paramount history, higher than Forrest Gump, higher than Indiana Jones. This was the research company that said this to me. So I said, that's great. If I don't get them into the movie theater, that's a crime because they would have a good time if they saw it.
And Forrest Gump had Tom Hanks to get him into the theater.
Right.
And Indiana Jones had...
That's right. People have probably read the reviews on this film and said, oh my God, this is a great review film, but I can't go see it. It's Howard Stern. How can I possibly like it? He's probably just, you know, sitting on a whoopee cushion.
So you've gone out on interview after interview after interview and been nice because you want to raise your likability factor and reduce your negative.
I'm very up about that. I'm very upfront about it. I said I'm going to go out and market this film. I'm going to try and talk to those people who have this negative feeling about me. I'm going to say to them, look, we've made this film. It's a good, solid film. You're going to like it. And somehow through this, it dawned on me, there's nothing I can say to you or to that person watching right now who doesn't like me. There's nothing I can say. I can't tell you I have a great film, because you know what? Dan Aykroyd probably goes around saying he has great films. You know, every actor goes around saying they have great films. There's nothing I can say. And now what I've relied on is word of mouth. And word of mouth seems to be getting out there.
Well, but you have a huge advantage. I mean, there's not a... Think of the television you have done. Letterman twice.
Yeah, right.
Leno.
Yeah.
Dateline.
Yes.
Have you done Oprah? Why not?
No, I don't think Oprah likes me. I don't think Oprah would have me on.
Because she's offended by...
No, because I've made fun of her in the past, and she's probably afraid to have me on. She probably doesn't want to support something that I do.
Now, would you make an effort to change that?
No,
would you have somebody
I would
call
not.
her up and
I told her I would do her show. I called up. I said, listen,
you said, I'd like to do the show.
I said, I would do the show.
My point is that Oprah is a singular exception. You have had a real opportunity here to, in a sense, explain who you are, what this film is about, as you and I are doing this, but you and I go back a long way.
The awareness level of this film is at 100%.
Right.
I don't think there's a person in America right now who doesn't know I have a film.
You haven't even
out.
worry about overexposure, that you've done every show from A to Z.
I will not do any more
television.
TV. I won't do any more of this. I did it for the movie because I believe in the movie. I will disappear
So
from
if I'd called you up to do an interview with me before the movie was there, you would have said, no, I don't have time for you and your silly show.
There's no reason for me to be doing TV interviews unless I have something to promote to the rest of America. If my radio show was on throughout the country, I wouldn't even bother with television shows.
All right, listen to these things and tell me what you think. These are what people have said about you.
Uh-oh.
Albert Brooks. Howard has built himself a uniquely conservative world to blast out of. If he were screwing 16 girls a day, he couldn't do it. For one thing, people would hate him. They'd be too jealous. It works for you because you have built this conservative world.
I think men and women relate to me.
Lifestyle that...
Yeah, I think people relate to me. Albert's right. People relate to me because I have the same life they do. While I'm a hit on radio or I have a film or this and that, they know I go home every day to my kids and my wife, and they yell at me. And I'm basically just like them.
David Remnick, New Yorker profile. You like that? Did you like that profile?
Yeah, very much. Thought it was really good.
He's a brilliant writer. Even more essential to Stern's media empire, Stern's creation of Howard Stern as an on-air persona, a sex-obsessed suburban nihilist, an arrested adolescent, boiling with wit and arrogance and insecurity, Sophie Portnoy's other son.
With David, you need a thesaurus. This is clear. It was a very intelligent piece. I know David liked the film a lot.
I know it. This is what David says again. Stern has become a gigantic American celebrity by assaulting the artificiality of American celebrity.
Yeah, I think so.
Doing what?
Well, because you know, look, when I comment on celebrity, when I comment on things, people relate to it because it's real. It's how they feel. I think people are fed up with the so-called Hollywood celebrity. They're fed up with everything that seems sort of fake and phony in our society. And what they're responding to is that they got a guy on the air who will comment on everything, even if it costs him work. It would be very wise for me now to suck up to Hollywood, now that I've made this first film. It would have been very wise for me to sort of kowtow to certain people, and I didn't have to do any of that. It's wonderful. It's wonderful having that radio show. That's why I'd be afraid to walk away from it.
Who do you most want to say, eat your heart out to?
Well, probably to every general manager and program director that I ever worked for, who told me that I was horrible, that told me that I didn't know anything about radio or didn't understand the media or didn't understand what people wanted. I love that. Probably a little bit some of the women who rejected me early on. I think I kind of like that. That's kind of neat. And or maybe, I don't know, I kind of like the fact that I can say to my father, you see, I'm not such a moron.
Well, he's already called you brilliant. So.
Well, yeah, it took a while.
This is Robin. Revenge is not sweet enough, though. Howard is constantly revisiting the past, which you just showed.
That's right.
And somehow it isn't enough to have the entire world be in love with him. He still wants the people who didn't love him before to love him now. He really wants them to feel how wrong they were, and it has to be a personal thing. I want to hear them love me now, and he's never going to get that because they don't love him then, and they don't love him now.
Yeah, well, first of all, someone said to me, did you make this movie so that people would love you more? I said, absolutely not. As a matter of fact, it was probably my feeling that after they saw my relationship with my wife, they'd say I was a skunk. That here's this wonderful woman who's so supportive, and yet you're betraying her by saying all these things on the air. And yet it seems that people aren't getting that feeling, but nevertheless, it wasn't the goal to make people love me. That's an absurd reason to make a movie. If you're doing that, then you're making a propaganda
But
film.
you want that, as all of us do.
Well, sure. When I get a positive...
From the President of the United States to the King of all media.
I mean, when I got that positive review from Janet Maslin and all these people,
you've been reading these reviews. You've been hugging these reviews in bed and on the air.
I lay in bed and fondle my reviews. Sure, why not? I mean, yeah, you like that kind of acceptance. When I wrote that book, I got positive reviews and I liked it.
All right, this is from Allison. My husband is wonderful.
See that?
See there?
Yeah. Did your first wife say that?
Yes, she does, and still does.
Really? Then what went wrong?
It's when I'm on your show.
Oh.
He really is the best person in the world. He is so sensible, has such common sense and such good judgment. People think I'm the big anchor in the family, but really he's part girl. I mean, the guy on the radio, there's nothing soft and sensitive about him. He's got no female side. But the other guy, I always said he was from Venus. She's right.
Well,
she's right.
I mean, I can come home and be a good husband.
Yeah, but it's more than that. I mean, you can come home and be
a phony. No. There is a listen. I think my audience has known this for years. I think my audience knows that I don't think my audience hates me or thinks I'm a hateful person. I think they genuinely see me as somebody who's humorous.
Do you think they'd come back if they thought you were a hateful person?
Absolutely not.
I don't think you'd listen to somebody you thought were hateful.
I think that's Morton Downey's thing, and
exactly.
that's why he burned out.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah,
if you think you're genuinely hateful, they wouldn't do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
David Denby, Howard Stern at his best, is a casual satirist of hypocrisy and identity politics. He's a throwback to the heroic age of radio, when a few spontaneous madcaps broke up the long patches of mediocrity and pleasant boredom. Though he presents his upward surge from obscurity to celebrity as a titanic struggle, he didn't actually struggle for very long. He was a big star by the time he was 30 or 31.
Well, maybe David Denby doesn't see my struggle, but...
but you do.
Sure did, yeah. It was not easy. I mean, when you go on the air and do lesbian dating game, now, admittedly, that's frivolous, but when you do lesbian dating game for the first time in Washington, D.C., there is hell to pay. You want your job badly. I wasn't making a lot of money. I didn't want to lose my job. I didn't want to lose my job every 2 months and move. And these guys said, I'm going to fire you. You've cost us 50% of our advertising dollar. Those were scary times, and I feel that I risked my job every day. And it felt like a tremendous struggle. And even to this day, now it's the FCC, it's on a bigger plane, there's still this struggle going on. There's always somebody there trying to knock down what I do. So I don't know that the struggle's over.
And that drives you in part.
It does. I don't want anybody to win. I don't want anybody else to beat me. I don't. I didn't want the general manager at my radio station in Washington to fire me and then say, ha, he's gone. I wanted to succeed. I wanted to show that I could get ratings and be commercially successful. And it was a struggle. When I was at NBC, even, you know, some people say, well, you made it. I didn't feel like I had made it. I was getting my brains beaten every day.
When did you feel like you'd made it?
I don't know that I ever have. I don't really feel like I've made anything. I don't ever, you know, I could be signing that book for 25,000 people in Los Angeles, and I walk out of there going, man, I'm a piece of garbage. I don't ever feel great.
I don't understand that,
I don't either.
Howard.
I don't ever feel...
I've never been to a psychiatrist, but I don't understand
well, neither
that.
have I don't get it either. But I don't feel like I've accomplished anything.
Well, is it because you don't think at the core of what you're about is it has any substance to it?
No, I just can't imagine that I'm somehow making it or
so
that I'm a big deal.
So when those 25,000 people are lining up to sign a book from you,
I don't get
you
anything
somehow
out of it.
say, why me?
Yeah, right. I don't get anything out of it. At the time, it doesn't even really... I feel more relief than anything that people are reading something that I wrote, because when you're writing it, you have no idea whether they're going to enjoy it, and there's a relief that people are buying it and enjoying it.
This is what's baffling.
Yeah.
On the one hand, I mean, I understand. On the one hand, you have a huge ego. Huge ego.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Right.
And you believe you'd be good on the radio. You were good on the radio.
Right.
You believed you'd make a good movie. You did make a good movie. All of that.
Right.
You believe if you go into a community, however big the city is, you'll be #1 eventually.
Right.
So you believe you've got something. On the other hand,
yeah, I know.
part of you is saying, why are they watching me? Why are they listening to me? Why do they want to see me in a movie? I don't deserve this. Tell me.
Well, listen. I went to see a guy named Dr. Sarno. He healed me of back pain.
Yeah, I heard about this guy.
Yeah, it's a psychological approach.
Right, I heard about it.
Okay.
Tony Schwartz, I think, told me about it.
Yeah, so anyway, I went to see him. The guy's brilliant, and he healed me of back pain. That's a whole other story. But
and what did he tell you?
He told me, though, that I am desperate need of a psychiatrist. He said that I should really be in intense therapy. He said I'm a very screwy guy. I haven't gone yet.
Why not?
Because who has time? I mean,
you know what? David Lynch was here,
right?
Who I like a lot.
Right.
Fine, fascinating guy and filmmaker. He went to see a psychiatrist and said to the psychiatrist, "Just tell me before we start this, is doing this going to affect my creativity?"
Right.
And the doctor said, "Maybe." He said, "I'm out of here.
I'm gone.
Goodbye. I'm gone."
That wasn't the reason, though. I'm not thinking that it would affect my creativity. I don't think anything can affect.
Well, why not you've done it? Because
I guess I haven't made it a high priority, and I feel like, well, you know, what's the point? Yeah. So what is he going to tell me? You know, what am I going to know? And also, would I be able to sit there and just not laugh at the whole thing? I don't know. I'm not good with that. But I can't explain my personality because people say, well, who's the real guy? The guy on the radio? Is it the real? All that stuff. We've been through that. So I can't explain to you why I could be sitting there signing a book for 25,000 people and not feel special. But I think that that's exactly what keeps me going. I think when you take a guy like the guy who did Pulp Fiction, Quentin Tarantino. Brilliant film. He did it, and he seems to be satisfied. I haven't heard anything from this guy since he did Pulp Fiction.
Well, he's done some stuff, but it hasn't been at the same level.
I think some people are very satisfied after they do one great thing, and they can go to parties the rest of their life and go, I did Pulp Fiction, and they can date Mira Sorvino and have a great time. I just think anything that I've done is really not that great, and I better go prove myself again. So
yeah, but I feel that too. I mean, I have the sense of you got to make sure that it's the best interview that's ever been done. If somebody doesn't walk out of here saying that was really good, then I feel like I failed.
Right.
I failed.
You're only as good as your last show.
Yeah, well, more than that, though, if you haven't done it better than anybody, and if you haven't really connected, you don't say, he was a lousy guest. You say, I didn't do something to connect, to find some link, to be...
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what it is with me, but I know that a lot of it has to do with I just don't want to be embarrassed. You know what I mean? I want to do the best thing I can possibly do. Yeah. With this movie, I didn't want to be embarrassed. I wanted to put forth a great movie. I took 4 years to do it. I better damn well come up with something good.
What brings you the greatest joy in your life, then? Other than family, which is obvious.
I don't know.
You don't like the radio show because you got to get up too early?
Yeah, I don't really, I don't think I'm a particularly joyous person. Yeah. You know?
You don't?
No.
Oh, no?
No, I don't think so. I really don't. I don't think there's anything that I go, I'm joyous.
Happy?
No, I'm not a happy person. Yeah, it's pretty obvious. No, I'm not. I hate to say that. I hate to see interviews with people who say they're not happy people, but I don't feel like I'm a happy guy. You know what I mean? I'm not a happy person, and maybe that's good.
And you have no idea what it would take to make you happy, nor are you necessarily in pursuit of finding out. No. All you're doing is wherever your instincts take you,
right,
and basically trying to prove yourself at every level, wherever it leads.
That's it.
All right, Rich Cohen, Rolling Stone magazine. Watching him, you know right away that no matter how well his movie does, this is where he belongs. The Howard Stern biosphere, a crazy sociological experiment where everything is lived on air. What happens here is what happens on other shows before the red light goes on, which is true.
Right.
With talent bitching about management, men creating an atmosphere, everyone trashing everyone. The American workplace. Stone was maybe the first person to realize the simple beauty of a naked woman on the radio.
Well, to me, he hits it on the head. What for me was the thing about radio that was fascinating was that nobody ever brought you behind the scenes.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to do with my radio show. I wanted you to know, I was fascinated when I was a little kid, and I'd be driving in the car with my father, we were listening to the radio, and you'd even hear a tape drop on the floor, and no one would acknowledge it, but you knew something was going on back there. I wanted to bring the audience in on that. Right. When you see in the movie that scene with Symphony Sid, my father was Symphony Sid's an old-time disc jockey, he was his engineer. There was more going on off the air that was interesting than on the air. And I wanted you to know what was going on off the air, everything that was going on behind the scenes, management, naked women, whatever it was. That was the interesting aspect of radio to me, not playing the records and not sort of doing the traditional radio thing.
Piercing the veil, showing them what it's like on the inside.
That's right. Yeah.
It's amazing how much.
It's a very serious interview, by the way.
Thank you.
Oh, is that it? It's
That's
over?
It.
Wow.
Thank you very much.
Now, if I tell you this wasn't the best interview I ever had, are you going to be crushed?
No.
It was. It was a great interview. Yeah, I think on a scale of 1 to 10, had to be a 10, right?
I think so.
Well, this has been a long time. The last time you interviewed me, I was about 225 pounds, and I was wearing white.
You look good, though.
I look better now.
Yeah, but see, the only thing is that when you have these 10 people come in here,
Charlie almost fell over. I had a guy doing the makeup, someone doing the hair, someone doing the clothes.
I mean, I'm saying, and there's a limousine outside that's
Yeah.
stretching from one block to the other.
Yeah, important guy now. You make a movie.
You know what it is,
you
though? God bless you.
Thanks.
Howard Stern for the hour. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.